Hello and welcome. Today we are diving deep into a story that stretches across all of human history, following a single soul through lifetime after lifetime of failure, sabotage, and, believe it or not, triumph. This is a big one, so let's jump right in. So, I want to kick this off with a question that really gets to the heart of this whole thing. What if your greatest failures were actually building your greatest strengths? This entire explainer is about that exact paradox, and it all plays out as this massive, cosmic-scale experiment. Okay, let's get into the setup. The premise is, well, it's simple but pretty profound. You have an observer, this timeless being named Lilith, and her subject, one single soul that she's tracking as it reincarnates through all these key moments in history. And her goal? Well, she has a hypothesis she's trying to prove about just how breakable a soul really is. And this right here, this is the central twist of the entire experiment. Lilith's goal in every single life is to find the soul's biggest flaw and then engineer a situation that makes it fail spectacularly. But, and this is the incredible part, the result is that every single time she intervenes, every calculated failure, it accidentally forges a brand new, powerful virtue in the soul. So here's the plan. We're going to follow this soul from its most primal beginnings, all the way through the great empires of the classical age, into the wild extremes of spiritual life, and then finally, right into the modern world. Think of each life as another case study in this grand, unintended journey of growth.
We're starting at the very dawn of consciousness. Our first case file looks at the soul's most basic, primal form, where the lessons aren't about philosophy, they're about simple, brutal survival.
Picture it, the Ice Age. The world is freezing, and life is incredibly fragile. Our subject is a hunter named Ka. Now, his tribe survives because they share everything: warmth, shelter, food. But Ka is driven by a deep primal fear.
And that one word, that's his entire world. Ka completely rejects the tribe. He chooses to hoard a kill all for himself because he thinks that owning it will keep him safe. So he isolates himself in a freezing cave, just guarding his precious meat.
Lilith's first intervention here is almost elegant in its simplicity. She doesn't really have to do much. She just lets Ka's own flaw play out to its logical conclusion. He chose isolation, and as the cold creeps in, his hoarded meat freezes solid. He literally freezes to death, starving, surrounded by food he can't possibly eat. And here it is, the first backfire. In his final, freezing moments, Kaias has this huge revelation. His selfish, desperate hoarding completely inverts, and it becomes this powerful, burning hunger for the very thing he rejected, the act of giving. And that is the lesson his soul carries forward. Okay, so let's fast forward and see how this pattern starts to get more complex. Thousands of years have passed. The soul is no longer just grappling with survival. Now it's dealing with complex ideas like society, justice, and morality. And that means Lilith's interventions have to get a whole lot more sophisticated too. So the soul moves through these incredible civilizations of the classical world. It's a high-ranking administrator in India, a physician during the plague in Greece, and an investigator in the Roman Republic. Each life is a brand new, more complicated stage for Lilith's ongoing experiment. And you can really see the pattern evolving here. Lilith's strategy is way more subtle now. She's not targeting simple greed anymore. Now she's going after intellectual and moral frameworks. A belief in pure logic, a deep fear of being abandoned, a blind faith in procedure. Let's zero in on Chandra. He was an imperial official in India's Mauryan Empire. And for him, the world is just a giant ledger. Human lives, suffering, justice, it's all just numbers that need to be balanced. He doesn't find beauty in people. He finds it in elegant calculations. So, Lilith sets up the perfect trap. She engineers this crisis. A fire breaks out, and Chandra has a choice. Does he save the people trapped in the burning buildings, or does he save the paperwork, the records he needs to prove a conspiracy and save his own skin? And, true to his nature, he runs for the records.
But as he's lying there dying from his injuries, the backfire is just profound. He realizes he literally ran away from a screaming child to save pieces of paper that ended up burning anyway. And his soul gets imprinted with this powerful new drive, to learn what it means to be present, to learn to stay with people who are suffering, no matter what it costs.
So from the world of politics and cold, hard logic, the soul now swings to the complete opposite extreme. It starts to incarnate into lives defined by intense spiritual devotion,
where the very act of renouncing the world becomes its own new and much more subtle trap.
Now we're in the stark Egyptian desert in the 4th century. Our subject is Macarius, a famous hermit who has given up everything, wealth, status, comfort, all to conquer his ego. The only problem is, he hasn't conquered it at all. He's just refined it. You see, Macarius basically just traded worldly vanity for spiritual vanity. He doesn't measure his worth by applause in a big lecture hall anymore. He measures it by the quiet reverence he inspires in all the young monks who visit him. In a way, he's hoarding holiness itself. Lilith's intervention this time is absolutely surgical. She visits him herself, disguised as a follower. She doesn't need a fire or a plague or some big disaster. All she has to do is praise him for his humility. And in that little spark of warmth he feels from her praise, he's forced to see the truth. His entire spiritual quest is built on a foundation of ego. And the backfire completely shatters him. In his last moments, Macarius realizes he hasn't just renounced vice. He's renounced life. He's starved himself of color, of texture, of softness, of beauty. So his soul carries forward this desperate, powerful hunger to finally experience the sensory world he's so completely rejected.
And the pattern just keeps going. We jump forward through a poet in ancient Japan whose love of beauty becomes its own kind of prison, then a converso in Inquisition-era Spain tested by doubt, a medic in 19th century China. Each life is a new test and a new backfire. And all of it brings us to the modern era and the culmination of this entire epic cycle.
At this point, the pattern is it's undeniable. Every single quality Lilith tried to corrupt was instead reforged into its virtuous opposite. Hoarding became a powerful drive to share. Cold calculation became a deep yearning for presence. Spiritual pride became a profound appreciation for earthly beauty. Her constant opposition has literally been the engine of the soul's growth. And that brings us, finally, to Silas, the soul's current life. He's a philosophy professor living a totally ordinary life until a crisis on a rooftop forces a choice. He's trying to save a student, and in that moment, something incredible happens. The need to be a hero, the flaw of a past life, just falls away. And instead, he acts with the integrated wisdom of all of his past lives, embodying sharing and presence and wisdom and service all at once. And this brings us to our final provocative thought. For thousands of years, Lilith has been the observer, right? The scientist, coolly watching her subject. But her obsessive need to track, to intervene, to control the outcome, isn't that its own kind of attachment? It really makes you ask, in an experiment with only 2 subjects, a soul that keeps learning how to let go, and an observer who just can't stop watching, who is really being tested?